Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hi there, I'm the Christmas Creature. You know, that guy from the really blurry video of Memphis Wrestling back in '92? It may not surprise you to hear that it's hard for a guy like me to find work after the most wonderful time of the year. What I really want to do during my off season is become a bona fide champion, like in Raid Shadow Legends. It's the free mobile and desktop game that lets you summon hundreds of champions, engage in local and online battles, and rack up weekly awards on your way to becoming one of the greatest heroes of all time. There are even new festive champions to help celebrate the season. What do those champions have that I don't? Surely there's some room in Talaria for someone who knows how to string up the lights, bake cookies, or sing a mean carol.
Deck the halls with the blood of your enemies. Fa la 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 la.
And right now, the SmackDown Women's Champion herself, Ronda Rousey, is available as a legendary champion. She's the baddest on the battlefield. Forget Charlotte Flair or Liv Morgan. They got nothing on bosses like the Fire Knight. You can get Ronda for free just by playing Raid for 7 days between now and February 20th. You can also use the special code RAIDRONDA to get a 3-day XP boost, 500,000 silver, and 5 full energy refills. Perfect for leveling your Ronda up from the word go. Use the link in the description to download Raid to get in on all the action with even more cool bonuses. And here's some more jingle for your bells. Raid are running a special 12-day Christmas event for new players. Download the game, copy your player ID, and head to 12daysofraid.plarium.com to win in-game loot or Amazon gift cards worth up to $1,000. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go and train to become a champion.
Hiya! Ha! Sa! Da! Do! Da! 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 Oh, should have been a mage.
Hey everyone, Brian Zane here, and this is the first video I have recorded since shaving all of my face. No more beard, no more Scott Steiner goatee, it's just au naturel Brian Zane once again. Thank you all so much who voted in the beard poll this year. Democracy reigns supreme, and the Scott Steiner goatee won by a landslide with 59% of the vote. So of course most of my donation money benefited Heifer International. Of course the other charities got some money as well. A lot of people were asking me, Brian, what's that thing on your face? What's the story behind that? It was the beard pull. That's what was behind that. But you know what? The beard is all done now. Fresh start here to end the year 2022. What a year it's been. What a year of classic reviews we have gone through from the beginning to end. And this has been a December-themed month of shows here in this last month of the year. So it's only fitting we look at one of my most requested December shows of all time. I'm talking about WWE's Armageddon 2008. From December 14th at the HSBC Arena in Buffalo, New York. This show was nominated by Brandon Breland, Austin Langfelder, Dante Jones, Jared Sedgwick, Pac Diesel, Joey Williamson, and Jake Haynes over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. I gotta tell you, when I was diving into this show at first, I was kind of excited because, well, clearly there's a reason Armageddon 08 was so frequently nominated over the years on Patreon. Obviously, this is the show where Jeff Hardy wins the WWE Championship for the first time. Very big moment for fans of a certain vintage who follow Jeff Hardy over the years. But there's got to be more stuff besides that, right? And I'm watching the show, and obviously I came from a time where, oh my God, I was under the impression that 08 was this amazing year. But as I'm watching the programming from like Survivor Series to Armageddon, I am bored to tears. Oh my God, I forgot how bad so much of WWE was around this time. Specifically like the acting, the delivery on promos, everything from everyone. You could tell it was all being written by like 2 or 3 people and put through a filter, and it's all the same language for everyone cutting a promo regardless of who's saying it or where they're saying it, and it's so monotonous with a couple of rare exceptions. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought 08 was so good. Then I remember, oh yeah, it was Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels who had a great 08, and everyone else I didn't really care about at the time. And so I'm like, oh, that explains it. But one fun thing about the build of this show is it features the one and only appearance in WWE of HADE VANSEN. This is a guy from England who was hired in WWE and was allegedly supposed to be in this long multi-month program with The Undertaker. It seems to be alluded to as such in his one and only very cryptic promo. If you watch this thing and you just take all the same verbiage and put Bray Wyatt over it, it seems almost identical. But it was very interesting, it was different, and then apparently Vince just thought that HADE was too small and never used him again. And that was it for HADE VANSEN in WWE. 12,500 folks in attendance for this, the final Armageddon in history. 193,000 pay-per-view buys, down a little bit from the 237,000 the previous year. Because of the theme of the show, Armageddon, end of the world, there's like a finger on the button imagery with a lot of this stuff. We also get very much like end of the world apocalyptic promo to hype up the show and beginning everything. This old man voice talking about the death and destruction of everything. And then the final line is,
"And when it's all over, will anything remain?"
Like, what? Who's this child coming in at the very end of this movie trailer? It's a multi-brand show. You got Jim Ross and Taz on the call for SmackDown, Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler for Raw, and Todd Grisham and Matt Stryker for ECW. Jim Ross's opening line, many of the scintillating final battles of 2008 between perceived good and evil culminate here tonight. What an incredible sentence. Your opening matchup sees ECW champion Matt Hardy taking on the undefeated Vladimir Kozlov in a non-title match. Oh baby, give me them double barrels of ECW action. Tell me again how much you care about this brand. Kozlov is unbeaten in his 8 months in the company. He just won the Slammy for Breakout Star of the Year last week. He's starting to cool off though after getting his title shot at Survivor Series. He's dipping into the ECW well to challenge Matt Hardy and has been beating him up ever since. But then they wrote off and said, oh no, it's non-title because Kozlov has never wrestled in ECW before, as if that's a requirement, which if that's the case, just have Kozlov have like one squash match in ECW. He's got his prereqs filled out, now he can challenge Matt Hardy for it. These two did fight a few weeks ago in a beat the clock challenge match where Matt ran out the clock in order to help his brother Jeff get his WWE title shot. Hardy staying resourceful and quick in the early going, but Kozlov cuts him off and throws his weight around for a bit, works him over by the arm for a long period of time until Matt fights out of it. Big axe handle from the top to start coming back. On the outside, repeatedly running Kozlov into the ring post. Matt's arm is cut from something. Kozlov takes Matt out in midair, but Matt gets the rope break. Matt with the corner punches, and shades of SummerSlam 05 against Edge is dropped headfirst into the ring post. No blood this time though, only defeat as he takes the chokeslam to win, not the title. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was an okay opening matchup here. I think having the title on the line would have made things a bit more interesting. I guess having it be non-title was a way to protect Matt as champion and also keep Kozlov unbeaten and maybe not bogged down by that, oh, that silly ECW championship. Like, if you're gonna push him and make him unbeaten and you want to flirt with the idea of making him a champion, you might as well give him the ECW title at this point. Edge, Vickie, and Chavo Guerrero are backstage. Edge goes to leave to get ready for his match, and Chavo really wants to know how those two took out Jeff Hardy the night before Survivor Series. Vickie maintains their innocence in all this and tells Chavo to get her a coffee. It's mobile poll time. Who do they really think attacked Jeff Hardy a month ago? Elsewhere backstage, Hornswoggle bops Eve Torres around with a blow-up shillelagh merchandise. Innocent kid stuff from this 22-year-old man. Finlay comes into the shot and tells his son he needs to stay in the back tonight so he can stay safe. Hornswoggle's sad. Bah! Hard cut to Scary Lion. It's time for the finals of the Intercontinental Championship #1 Contenders Tournament as CM Punk takes on Rey Mysterio for the first time in WWE. Do you think those two ever would have imagined back in 2002 in IWA Mid-South going against Vickie Guerrero that those two would face off again all these years later on the big stage? So earlier in the year, the 2008 King of the Ring, Willie Reeves, came back from his 60-day suspension for violating wellness that totally killed his push, but he has his consolation prize in the Intercontinental Championship and now wants a challenger that would be worthy of it, hence this tournament. Originally, CM Punk was going into this show as one half of the World Tag Champs on Raw with Kofi Kingston, but the night before this, at a house show, The Miz and John Morrison, who just won the Slammy for Tag Team of the Year, beat Kingston and Punk for those belts. The action's fast-paced at the start, each man teasing their finish in the first minute or so. Punk dives to the outside right in front of the champ and his throne alongside Layla. Rey's hung in the corner. He sits up to avoid the knee and hits a pretty moonsault off the top. Punk with a series of arm holds, Rey with a counter of his own. Rey with a big dive off the top to the outside. Punk coming back with a big knee and the bulldog. Rey with a cool counter when Punk goes for a leg trip, just a 2 count though. Rey finally hits the 619 to a huge pop. Punk sits up though to avoid the splash. More near falls. Punk countering a Hurricane Rana attempt into the go to sleep. It connects, much to the chagrin of Rey's nose. Punk wins this tournament. 4 stars out of 5 for me. I loved this match. I thought these two had great chemistry. My one question is, why was this not the opener to the show? Can we just pretend that it was? It's glow-in-the-dark Jeff Hardy, and guess what we're talking about this week, sweet kids, his demons. He asks himself if he's ready to make a change and if he's got what it takes. He talks how people have been trying to break him for years, but he's been breaking down his own walls by his own hand the entire time. He has this thing about the naysayers and the doubters saying, it's easy to say Jeff's a screw up, he's just going to make a mistake again. Well, he wraps it up by saying he is what he is, and that's the next WWE champion. On we go now to a recap of this new wrinkle in the Shawn Michaels JBL rivalry that began during the build for Survivor Series. JBL calls out Shawn Michaels for having lost all of his money in the financial crash of 2008. Yes, this is a story ripped from the headlines. JBL offers to help pay Shawn by making him his indentured servant who he can humiliate at will, basically, like he did at the Slammies last week when he just yoinked Shawn's Slammy for his own. Back live, JBL rolling up in his limousine and introduces his new employee, Shawn Michaels. For the first time now, Shawn finally speaks on the matter and talks about his story and how things have been going lately. He says, I wasn't great with my money when I was younger. I kind of spent, as someone who didn't have money growing up. So I spent frivolously, got better as I got older, put money in the stock market. Things were going great, and then everything caved in. And he talks about how he doesn't want to be doing this. He hates JBL as a person, saying he's smug and reprehensible, but he is good with money. He's got a family to support, which is why he took JBL up on his offer. He says he will not become a wrestling tragedy. You're not going to see him wrestling in a high school gym or looking really sad at some small autograph signing. Keep in mind, we are about a month away from The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke making its American debut in cinemas, where there's a lot of that stuff being talked about. So there are some parallels to that story and what Shawn Michaels is describing here. And he says if he has to endure fans calling him a sellout for going with JBL, then so be it. He doesn't want to do it. He has to do it. JBL takes the mic from him. They shake hands. Pretty powerful stuff. And then to wrap it all up in a bow, Jerry Lawler, the one line of commentary you hear after all this emotional speech from Shawn Michaels, Jerry Lawler says,
This is unfortunate.
So Eve Torres has got Randy Orton in the promo zone asking what his strategy is for the match with Batista later on. Here come Cody Rhodes and Manu to cut his promo for him. Cody basically says Batista's been dumb muscle ever since Evolution. He's not imbued with the God-given gifts of a second or third generation talent like they are. Manu wraps it up by saying Randy Orton cements his legacy tonight. Ooh, foreshadowing. Up next, it's the Belfast Brawl, the first we've seen since WrestleMania 24. This time it's Finlay taking on the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. These two have been beefing for a while now. Mark Henry's been threatening Finlay and his family as a result. We get highlights from last week's tag match, Finlay and Hornswoggle versus Mark Henry and Tony Atlas, where Henry goes to splash Swoggle, but Finlay takes the bullet for his sweet, innocent child son. By the way, if you want to hear more about the bizarre storyline of Hornswoggle in WWE and how he became Finlay's son, go watch the review right here. The action spills to the outside fairly early, fight near the announce tables. Henry's sweeping Finlay's legs on the apron. He takes a face plant. Finlay avoids a splash, starts gathering the plunder from under the ring. Tony Atlas on the outside distracting Finlay. That allows Mark to dink fit with the trash can lid. Henry's squishing Finlay in the ropes. Finlay begins to come back with a trash can shot, the kendo sticks, a DDT. Henry comes back, wants to go for the big sit, but Finlay avoids it. He grabs a shillelagh, but does not get to use it. Henry grabs it and snaps it in half. Very cool visual until a moment later he does the same thing to a kendo stick. I feel it would have been stronger the other way around. Hornswoggle runs in, defying his father's advice, gets Tony Atlas's attention. Mark gets the steel steps, but he gets drop kicked in the knee and drops him. Hornswoggle tosses his dad another shillelagh. The dink, Finlay wins, and Swoggle gets the broken shillelagh for his own. Aw. This one gets 3 out of 5 stars from me. I thought it was a pretty solid brawl. Of course, Finlay definitely in his element, doing the brawling style of match. I think Mark Henry is one of those guys who can work well with a lot of, especially at this point in his career, can work well with a lot of different styles because, like, if you're a big guy, you can work and have interesting chemistry with a smaller guy, with a luchador, with a technical guy, with a brawler. It's very diverse in that way. So I think this match was definitely played to both their strengths. Backstage, we see the Bella twins, Tiffany, Candice Michelle, and Melina just decorating a tree like you do backstage. They're greeted by Santa Haas, who is giving away presents. In come Glamourella, the power couple of Santino and Beth Phoenix. One of my favorite things about this year later actually. They said they want to pick the next president, but it's the boogeyman with teeth? What the fuck? Santino goes to leave, but Goldust appears in the doorway under the mistletoe. Boogeyman gives Goldust a gift. The two lead everyone into a rousing rendition of We Wish You a Merry Christmas, and suddenly a bunch of other extras come in. There's IRS, there's Jesse and Festus. What is going on? This is absolute chaos. And then we cut to Mr. Kennedy. Oh no, don't get pulled down on this bit too, man. So Mr. Kennedy's WWE career was already on the downward slope by the end of 2008. It suffered greatly the previous year when he got a wellness violation right when the Mr. McMahon illegitimate son storyline was beginning to percolate, and that was supposed to be something he was meant to be heavily involved in until a suspension. He's back, he's wrestling for a while, he gets injured earlier in the year, and he comes back in November to promote his straight-to-DVD movie Behind Enemy Lines Columbia, and they just make him the worst iteration of Mr. Kennedy is during this time. He comes out wearing street clothes every week, he just promotes his DVD movie, he asks like audience members weird questions, and he does interviews. Like, who is this man? Anyway, Kennedy in this bit tells everyone to drink responsibly this holiday season, don't do drugs, but do get his new straight-to-DVD movie, which drops on a date that will prove to be equally infamous in another era.
Behind Enemy Lines Columbia, which comes out January 6th.
Up next, a match 4 years in the making as Randy Orton takes on Batista. Of course, lots of rich history between these two. These guys were the rising stars in Evolution many years ago until Orton was kicked out of the group for, reaching for the brass ring before Triple H wanted him to, and then Batista later defected several months later. Last month, Batista lost the world title to Chris Jericho, wanted a rematch, but couldn't get one until after Survivor Series. Enter Orton, who thinks he deserves a shot first. This leads to them captaining their respective teams at the Survivor Series show. They have a one-on-one match set for Armageddon, and while that's happening, Orton begins to run with Cody Rhodes and Manu. And sure enough, the future legacy mates flank Orton on his way to the ring. Orton pulling Batista out early on. That allows Rhodes and Manu to attack. Adrenaline in the soul. Back to the locker room they go. Orton works the arm. Batista powers out, but Orton with a neck breaker back on the attack works his way into hitting that drape over DDT. Randy wraps his whole body around Batista. It's the super sleeper, but Bats powers out yet again. Superplex by Orton, spinebuster by Batista, both men taking each other's big shots. Orton preps the RKO, Batista stops it and slams him, very close kick out. Batista with the corner punches. Orton tries to block, but Batista hits his bomb. Batista wins. This one gets 3.5 stars out of 5 for me. I thought this was a pretty solid matchup here. I think with Batista, it really boils down to who his opponent is, because he can have a good or bad match depending on who he's wrestling. And I think with Orton, again, one of those guys incredibly versatile, very well gifted, and that he can kind of have a pretty good match with just about anybody. And so he and Batista, I think, worked really well here. And the physicality was definitely on point. One day after Batista beats Orton in this match, though, he would be punted off TV by Randy and be gone for a long time to actually, he would get surgery for a hamstring injury he suffered back at SummerSlam. So kudos to him for holding out that long before surgery. We get a big ol' recap of last week's Slammy Awards. Filling time, are we, folks? Then it's time for the Santa's Little Helper match as Maria, Mickie James, Kelly Kelly, and Divas champion Michelle McCool, who's dressed as a toy soldier, take on Maryse, Victoria, Jillian Hall, and relative newcomer Natalya. It's red versus green, and all the commentary mics are open for this one. Everyone's kind of kicking back, having a beer, and just riffing the whole time. Mickie James and Maryse squaring off first. Natalya gets in there. In comes Kelly Kelly, who Matt Stryker calls a hot Hebrew, which makes JR say, oy vey. That's the first time for everything.
Kelly Kelly also is a gymnast. You know that?
Oy vey.
And believe me when I say, the commentary here is like the best and the worst thing about this matchup, because they have some funny lines throughout, but it totally takes away from the match and the effort the women are actually trying to put out here. But JR with a couple of savage lines on Jerry.
Well, King like Kelly Kelly the best. She's the youngest lady in the match.
That's right.
The King will be checking out the pictures on WWE.com with his pal. Of course, we know what we're talking about, Stocky Balboa.
Jillian comes in, hits a handspring splash. Maria's in. Victoria comes with a cheap shot. That leads to all the ladies in red running in. McCool with a blind tag on Maria, which she takes offense to. McCool hits the Styles Clash on Jillian, because that's what it's called, and Team Red wins. They begin to argue amongst themselves. In come the Great Khali and Ranjin Singh. Oh my god, it's time for the Christmas kiss cam. Fuck this shit. So yeah, the Great Khali is a babyface now, and the joke is, hey, he's a big ugly dude, so he's now the Punjabi playboy, and he kisses ladies in the crowd with a Kali kiss cam. Which of these ladies will fall into the camera's crosshairs? It's Michelle McCool. Oh, but what a heel she is for declining to kiss someone she doesn't want to. Okay, well, what about you other three? Nah, no takers? Well, Ranjan's got a backup plan. Someone who's been helping Santa for a long time. It's 84-year-old Hall of Famer Mae Young, everyone. Jerry fires off as many old people jokes as he can in 30 seconds. Mae says this is the greatest high spot of her life as she locks lips with the Punjabi playboy. Some people paid $40 for this. The match itself, I gotta give 1 star out of 5 because at least, again, an attempt was made. There was some effort there with this one, but then there's all that stuff at the end with Kali and the kiss cam. Just one more component of a show that is rife with filler. In your first of 2 main events, John Cena defends his newly won World Heavyweight Championship against Chris Jericho, who honestly, like I mentioned at the top of this review, has had a hell of a year. His big heel turn and his feud with Shawn Michaels, punching out Shawn's wife at SummerSlam, the World Championship run, the ladder match at No Mercy. But after that runs its course, now he finds himself to be fodder for John Cena like it's 2005 all over again. Cena comes back from a herniated disc in his neck, and he soon beats Jericho at Survivor Series to win the world title. Jericho's earned a rematch, Cena espousing the hustle, loyalty, respect mantra, Jericho calling Cena a hypocrite for turning it into a shirt. The two take turns beating the hell out of each other on Raw during the build. Cena beats on Jericho for an uncomfortably long period of time when he gets his licks in. And one thing about the storyline I did appreciate here was Jericho adding the personal element to it. He was accusing Cena of having kind of converted or brainwashed his son into becoming a Cena fan, and how much it hurt Jericho inside because it was Cena who had who ended up getting Jericho fired from WWE in 2005. And so he has banned his son from watching Raw, except for this night when he will beat his own son's hero, John Cena, for the championship. The match begins, the two going at it aggressively here. Michael Cole bringing up Jericho's history at Armageddons over the years, including the one where he won the Undisputed Championship, which happened in December, but not at Armageddon. Sleeper on Cena. Cena falling on to him, but Jericho hanging on. Cena goes for an FU, but Jericho hits a DDT instead. They tease that move again on the apron. Jericho throwing Cena face first into the steps. Jericho works Cena's neck, but John fights back, doing a few of his moves of doom. He tries a throwback, but Jericho blocks it, hits the lion salt, and we get a kick out. I've just now noticed the Paul I can't feel my legs sign, a reference to $1 Million Mania. That's awesome. Cena hits Jericho with a big leg drop off the top. Goes for the FU again. Jericho landing on his feet, hits the code breaker, and we get a kick out. Cena finally hits the move, but he's too worn down to capitalize. STFU attempt countered into the walls. Cena in that hold for a very long time before he powers out, counters back into the STFU. Jericho taps, and Cena retains. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. This was a darn good match here. I don't like how easily it was just Cena, comes back from the big finishing hold, gets his on, and boom, it's over. I've never liked that about Cena's matches, how fast he just kind of pops up from that stuff. I mean, even Hogan, when he hulked up, would at least do he'd run around and shit, kind of milk that. Cena just goes, nope, you're done. And that was kind of the vibe to this match ending the way it did. But I think everything leading up to that was still very well done. Let's go to the results of that mobile poll. 65% of fans with good data plans think that Edge was responsible for the Jeff Hardy attack. And speaking of which, we go to the main event now for the WWE Championship as Edge defends against Triple H and Jeff Hardy. And really, the story for this match is all about him. Back in March, Jeff got his second wellness violation. He dropped the Intercontinental title, taken out of the Money in the Bank ladder match that all signs suggest he was supposed to win. Jeff comes back after 60 days, gets a couple of WWE title shots. He fails. Then at Survivor Series, Jeff was meant to be in the title match, but was written out as he was apparently attacked in his hotel the night before. The match becomes Triple H versus Kozlov, but then partway through, Vickie Guerrero makes it a triple threat match with her husband Edge, who swoops in and wins the championship. But now Jeff is back and he wants that title shot that he never got at Survivor Series. And of course, Triple H is still involved. How are we going to crown a new #1 contender? We had the Beat the Clock challenge. And in the end, you had Triple H and Jeff Hardy winning their respective matches at the exact same time, meaning they were both going to challenge Edge here. Now, meanwhile, everyone denies attacking Jeff at the hotel back in November. Triple H even saying that Jeff's not a big enough blip on his radar. Wow, great line from the babyface. I mean, I say that, but he plays babyface at this point. He's not turned heel yet, but he is competing for babyface sympathy with Jeff Hardy. And at this point, point, I'm sorry, you're not going to win that battle. Jeff's on a good roll to start things off, hits some sudden poetry in motion with Triple H as an unwitting base. Hardy dives onto Edge on the outside, but H-Man lays him out. Edge and Triple H work by themselves for a few minutes till Jeff comes back to stop the pedigree. Triple H goes for another one, but Jeff hits him with a whisper in the wind. Triple H has Edge in the electric chair, but Jeff with another whisper, taking them both out. A pedigree attempt turns into a slingshot. Edge goes for the spear, but misses Jeff. Jeff has the twist of fate on H, the swanton, but Jeff is pulled out of the ring. On the outside, Edge is hurled right into one of the cord wranglers. They're prepping tables on the outside. Jeff and Triple H fight on one, but then Edge spears Jeff with the other one. Back in the ring, Edge going for a spear again, but gets caught with a spine buster. Pedigree, but here comes old Vladimir Kozlov pulling Triple H out. That brings out Matt Hardy for the save. Jeff goes up top. Kozlov shows him to the floor. Spear to H, but a kick out. Edge wants to go for a concerto, perfectly legal here, but Jeff shows back up and clatters Edge with it. Another pedigree to Edge. H goes to the cover, but then Jeff with a swanton out of nowhere pins Edge to win. He wins his first WWE Championship. The crowd is absolutely going bonkers for it. We get a long period of time here where the announcers just lay out let the moment sit. It's definitely a redemptive moment for Jeff and his fans, and was something that was seemingly a very long time coming. So definitely a cathartic moment here. I give it 4 stars out of 5. It's an awesome main event. I think that, again, the redemptive story of Jeff Hardy overcoming the odds and winning the championship, it's very much kind of similar to an Eddie Guerrero moment at No Way Out 05, where you think, oh my God, this is going to be like the turnaround for Jeff. This is where it's all going to be fine again. We obviously know now in hindsight that's not the case, because 15 years later, we're still talking about Jeff overcoming his demons and fighting them and causing all this missed opportunity. All these years later, it's like these things keep kind of repeating themselves, sadly. But in this moment, it's definitely a great feel-good way to close out 2008. Credit to Triple H in this matchup, because I'm pretty sure he was the most active in the match in terms of just constantly working and doing stuff. He got some rest time, but I think that Edge and Hardy got a little bit more here. Edge looking cunning and diabolical. Hardy's hope spots really well received in the build up to the finish. Yeah, I think this was a great triple threat match. Again, sucks like what happens, down the line with Jeff and his demons and all these redemptive moments and everything. But in this moment, again, it was fantastic. It was wonderful. And of course, this will set off what eventually becomes this bitter feud between he and his brother Matt the following year. My grade for Armageddon 2008 is a C+. This show, man, there was like 2 very different sides to this thing, because there were some good matches on here. I loved CM Punk and Rey Mysterio. I thought that the championship matches at the end were really well done, but then there was a lot of stuff in the show that didn't need to be there, like Matt Hardy and Kozlov. If you're trying to protect them both, maybe don't have them wrestle in this matchup and don't have Kozlov beat the ECW champion in a non-title matchup. The Christmas sketch was like 2 minutes I wish I could get back, and I feel the same way about the Santa's Little Helper match, which is interesting because we are still like 2 weeks away from Christmas at this point, and they're like getting all their Christmas stuff like out of the way here. That stuff you save for Raw and SmackDown. What are we doing here putting it on pay-per-view? Again, 2008 was a very strange time where it's like, oh, it's a pay-per-view. Let's have some in-ring promos like it was TV, because that's what people pay money for, apparently. And so the Shawn Michaels promo, even though it was good and it told the story, again, you could have had this on regular television. Everything else, so much of this show felt like filler, like they're trying to pad for time here because you didn't have enough meat on the bone with the matches that actually people might have cared about. And with that, folks, that's going to be a wrap on my solid month of classic pay-per-view reviews, and I'm pretty sure this is the last video I'm putting out for the year, so I'm going to take this time to say thank you, one and all, for making 2022 another terrific year here at Wrestling with Regret. It's hard to believe that in 2023, I'm entering my 10th year of making silly videos about wrestling on YouTube, but it's all because of you and your support over the years that's allowed me to continue doing this, and it's just been a great feeling. It's been a great year. I'm very proud of the stuff we've put out this year, and I'm really excited for what 2023 is going to hold in store for us. Next month, we go back to the original format of long forms and classic pay-per-view reviews. We'll be covering some classic Rumbles. Not entirely sure which ones yet, so stay tuned for those. We are going to have our end-of-year countdowns in January as well. We're going to have the worst of 2022 and the best of 2022, so stay tuned for that. And until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and have a happy new year. Thanks to Raid for sponsoring this video. Make sure to download Raid with the link in my description.